Hello and welcome to Psyched, the show where we explore psychedelics through social, economic, and political perspectives.
Introducing our next speaker, we have Dick Simon. Dick Simon is an entrepreneur, social enterprise philanthropist, and catalyst for change. He co-founded the Peace Action Network of YPO, a network of over 29,000 international CEOs. PAN addresses conflict resolution on local and global levels. He launched the Know Them initiative to raise awareness about the most dangerous four-letter word in the English language, them. Currently, he is involved with the organizations pursuing FDA and European Medical Association clinical trials for mental health, PTSD, and depression, treatments using psychedelic medicines. He is working to shift public perspective and reduce stigmatization related to the use of these medicines, and is also working with researchers studying psychedelic treatments for a wide range of indications, as well as their possible use in conflict resolution. Dick, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Psyched.
Thank you very much. Am I now able to be heard?
Yep, you're good.
Great, fantastic, thanks. Well, it is great to be here, and what an incredible, multiple days of incredible panelists. I'm honored to be part of it. So what I'm gonna be talking about is this whole idea of communicating beyond or outside of our psychedelics bubble. And it's a variant of a talk that I've been giving to CIIS students, those who are being certified for to become psychedelic assisted therapists. So let me share this screen. All right, great. I'm assuming the screen is clear now and it's being seen?
You're good. You're good.
Fantastic. So I'm involved in a range of different organizations. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So PAN and Know Them was about differences between geopolitical groups or racial groups or ethnic groups or religious groups. Over the last several years, I've been doing a lot of work in the space of psychedelics where I'm trying to help bridge gaps both within our community and, more importantly to me, in terms of the work that I'm doing, reaching out beyond the bubble, reaching out to the non-psychedelic world. And I think it's really important because when we're here together, we get a sense that everybody understands what we're doing. Of course, this is good and this is valuable. So this is not exactly to scale, but we are in a bubble. We are in a tiny bubble. To make the bubble sort of the honest size that it would be in the world would be impossible to read on the screen. People receive a whole wide spectrum of messages, from positive, serious news articles, to Netflix's piece about how fun and funny it is to be having a good trip, to Billions, which just is now turning commercialization into part of their show. So people don't really know outside of our bubble what's going on. And the point of what I'd like to be sharing with you is how, for those of us who care about this space, who have tremendous interest in it and want to advance this work, what are some ways that might be helpful in communicating beyond this bubble so that people get it? So the first thing I would strongly suggest is I tend to present it, and everybody's got to do whatever's good and comfortable for them. But I present this as looking for areas of commonality and agreement. Mental health crisis is absolutely one of them. Everyone, regardless of where you are on the being a full-fledged psychonaut to someone who politically I may not agree with on anything else, everyone understands that there's a mental health crisis. And the statistics are incredible. depression affecting over 300 million people. 1 in 5 Americans experiences a mental health issue. This is frightening. Every 40 seconds, someone in the world is committing suicide. And as a bridge to some of those who politically may be further to the right, in the US, over 20 veterans every day commit suicide. We lose more veterans to suicide every year than the US has lost in all of the wars since September 11th. So each year we're losing that cohort. And that tends to be a way of sort of getting people to focus on the question or the problem. My basic message to people is it would be irresponsible to investigate potentially innovative cures. So we're not talking about how much fun it is to be in Burning Man, and I'm totally depressed that it's closed this year for good reasons. But we're not talking about tripping. We're not talking about personal experiences. What we're sharing is the need, and then it's irresponsible not to be looking for potential advances or potential cures. I give context of the war on drugs. People have grown up in this context of, drugs are dangerous, drugs are bad. Several years ago, I would have fit in that category. Not evil, but just, I don't want to mess with my mind. Pointing out the political origins of the war on drugs, the fact that it was completely against science, but it was done for political reasons, can help people get past some of what they've been programmed or stigmatization that has gone on. Pointing out also that the whole idea of a war on drugs just doesn't work. Even if you think it's evil and there should not be drugs allowed, we haven't succeeded in stopping drugs from being around. So it's a waste of time and effort, and it has huge costs, both societal costs with racially based incarceration and just dollar costs and lives destroyed. So that's a way of addressing the war on drugs. Really, really, really important is that words matter. Words matter. I've learned this. So in the earlier work that I was doing through that peace action network and across geopolitical conflicts, one word said wrong and you completely lose your audience. People get triggered. So being super careful in the way you're talking so that your audience can understand and can receive. Beware of triggers, differentiating the broad category of, quote, drugs, which runs from aspirin through heroin. Mushrooms are safer than essentially any other thing we end up doing in that space. It's safer than cigarettes, it's safer than alcohol, it's even safer than marijuana, which is whatever. And I would always try to shift that conversation to assisted psychotherapy as a way of bridging between those who otherwise don't know anything about this. It's really hard, but I make a real effort to encourage people to don't overstate, don't overpromise, focus on underpromising and being credible. Acknowledge the risks. There are certain risks. And without acknowledging that or with pretending that people are, this is totally risk-free and there are no issues, you're going to lose people. Avoiding blame and vilification. Those who don't understand the benefits, those who may not be at all aware, other than adverse commercials they've seen, aren't necessarily evil people. They are just people who aren't aware of certain benefits that you have the opportunity to help them better understand. I also will sometimes talk about, again, using language that is safer to say to those who are not otherwise in this bubble with us, talking about the potential benefits for people that medicine calls healthy normals, those of us who are normally screwed up but don't have a diagnosable mental illness. Benefits like shift in nature relatedness. I've had a lot of conversations with environmentalists, and that can be a way of bridging to them. Shift in views on authoritarian control, which again can have a lot of benefits. And then I point out that in medical studies, when as part of the study, a questionnaire is asked how they rate the value of this experience in their life experiences, when you're getting 70% of the people putting it in their top 5 life experiences, my comment is just generally, it's something that we ought to be investigating. Something's going on here and we want to know it better. I'm also suggesting that we are careful and avoid anecdotes that can undermine our credibility. You can have like a great conversation, and if it spins off too far into, you know, your incredible experience in the Amazon, which was great, you can be undermining other credibility that you're establishing. And I'm also really careful to clarify when I'm offering a personal opinion as opposed to something that is fact-based, data-based, research-based. Also, so here within our community, there's a lot of disagreement. And what my message to everyone here would be, determine what you think the key goal is and focus on that key goal. For me, and I assume for many of you, it's around making these substances more broadly available, not in a criminal context. And everyone may have their own routes for doing that. But I would just be very, very careful to focus on the goal and be careful about getting into long issues around things that tend to divide. You know, is medicalization good or bad? Well, I just view it as, if this is 100% medicalized, let's take that far, far, far extreme, what it means is it's no longer a felony offense to be utilizing these substances. That's progress. And obviously, we're not going to end up just there. So rather than viewing it, all right, that isn't my perfectly preferred route, look at the broader picture, the whole for-profit, not-for-profit. Similarly, there are many avenues, and no one wants this completely controlled by one entity, but the likelihood of that is awfully remote. And again, we are advancing all of this toward general societal acceptance of these incredibly valuable substances. Who's taking what funds for research? MAPS, which I totally love, and Rick Doblin is like a saint, took some funding from very conservative sources and was criticized. He took the position, look, I'd rather them use their money for something productive, but that ended up creating a lot of controversy in the space. The whole issue of intellectual property is complicated. To run a for-profit business and garner the funds that are needed for that, you need something, and obviously this has to be done in a controlled way. People get into arguments as to what the best medicine is. No, ayahuasca is all that matters, psilocybin's to this, or MDMA is the only. Just be broadly, openly accepting different people have different experiences and different perspectives. Issues like Indigenous people's rights are incredibly important. I mean, Indigenous people, this is like the 100th thing that they've gotten the horribly raw end of the deal on. And it's important, but again, if your primary focus is how do we get these medicines more generally available, you might want to focus on the primary focus and address other things. Same issue with inclusivity, where this is a huge problem in this space. But if it distracts us too much from the major goal, it's just a conscious decision. And some people may feel that any one of the issues on this list is more important than overall approval, and more power to you. Mine is, let's get approval and move from there. And similarly, the question on decrim or legalization, different people have different perspectives on that. I'm always trying to find the access point. And for me, access points that have worked really, really well are veterans. A very sympathetic group, 22 veterans a day taking their lives is totally unacceptable. Over 1 million veterans are being treated for PTSD, and most of the treatments are not very effective. Frontline healthcare workers now are very, very much in the news and an incredibly sympathetic population. And again, that's a great way of bridging. We need to be helping these people. And anyone who directly or indirectly suffers from mental health issues. So everyone has someone in their family, in their friends, who is suffering from depression, from alcohol use disorder, from anorexia, from whatever it may be. And that's the way of connecting, as these may be helpful. And they issue promise in a way people have been listening for days, breakthrough therapy status, that even our FDA has ruled these to be. so potentially beneficial as to give them breakthrough therapy status, which 2/3 of drug applications cannot get. And that's for MDMA through MAPS, and for psilocybin for depression through Usona and through Compass. So basically all psychedelics that have applied to the FDA have received to date breakthrough therapy status. So in just wrapping up some of the comments, and then I'd love questions, or I'm happy to go on any of these, things can change really, really quickly, and we want to be aware of that. So in the 50s and early 60s, Aldous Huxley writes Stories of Perception, Life magazine, everyone, this is the most amazing new substances that can change psychiatry, that heal marital relationships, that deal with all of the mental illnesses that people have been dealing with. And then it moves into the popular culture, and within a very, very short time, it went from a perfect panacea to the mind-controlled drug that got out of control, pushers, riots. And as a result of that, we ended up with a horrible period of time, your brain on drugs, complete criminalization, shutting down all research, which is now being resumed and fantastic. But there was a long period of time, and it can happen again. Really positive, we're now back at a place where we're in the psychedelic renaissance. Michael Pollan's book is an incredible bridge for so many people. And that's really, really valuable. We're getting a lot of positive articles, positive stories, different ways that people can be learning about. And psychedelics are portrayed in a wide range of populations, of publications. Fox writes positive news, the Wall Street Journal, as well as the New York Times. 60 Minutes does features. So we're in this space where there's a lot of potential, but we don't want to be complacent. Things can shift, and can shift very, very quickly. So in summary, if you were to take a few thoughts with you, I would hope they might include the idea that words matter. If the idea is to communicate, be very conscious of what you are saying and how you are saying it. Be credible in what you're saying, and don't overpromise, don't overcommit, and be open to the fact that, yeah, it's complicated. Nothing is perfect. These are really, really good, really, really helpful, help most people, and are very positive, but being credible. And then finally, I would encourage people to focus on the same team aspects of what we are doing, keeping the goal in mind that we want this work advanced, and we want these substances more generally available. So just, I'm happy for people to reach out to me directly, just in some of the roles that I have. Massachusetts General Hospital, which is Harvard University's primary teaching hospital, is establishing now a major center for psychedelic research. And I'm honored to be chair of their advisory council, moving that forward. And it's great because it's going back to the same institution, Harvard, where Timothy Leary and some of that ended up creating what we've been dealing with for the last decades. It's wonderful that now Mass General Hospital, which is the largest research-based institution in the United States, and Harvard are very, very much behind this. And then within the business community, doing things like this international business network of YPO with its 29,000 members now has a psychedelic medicines for mental health group with several hundred members that runs regular webinars. So anyone who would like more information, please reach out to me, dick@dicksimon.com, and the website with a lot of information on this is dicksimon.com. So the idea was to allow plenty of time for questions, and if there are questions, great. If not, I'm happy to expand on anything that I touched on.
Nick, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. The first question I'd love to start off with is, so there's we can have individual conversations with people in our lives. And then there's the kind of more media centric conversations that are happening by news outlets and especially startups that are entering this space, and companies now beginning the beginnings of advertising. I was wondering if you could extend on, some of these conversations around, interpersonal dialogue about these compounds, the way organizations and news outlets are talking about them, and then us transitioning in a healthy way to being able to launch marketing campaigns around products and compounds that are a part of the psychedelic space.
Yeah, great questions. So I would say that like advertising and marketing hasn't really started very much yet. And, there are a few isolated, and that I would expect will change, and will change a lot. I think that, that will go on, and some of it will unfortunately be overpromising. The same way all pharmaceuticals, just take this and you'll be all better, is not a great way of transitioning people, because you can't take one thing and it's all better. I think that the personal conversations, which I'm assuming sort of a lot of the participants are involved in, become really, really important. Your friends, groups that you talk to, want to know from you what's really going on in that space. And people are shockingly, and I say shockingly because, I'm out there doing this, all the time, unaware. And people who you would be like mental health experts don't know about psychedelics, or what they do know is, aren't they all addictive, or just little snippets that are just inaccurate. So I think just approaching it from a friendly, trying to help inform, I think is most effective, rather than confrontational. And you'll hear things that aren't true or that are inflammatory, and it's just gee, where did you hear that? Or, well, actually, the data is very different, or my experience is very different, whatever it may be.
We had David Grillot from the Thank You Plant Medicine movement on a couple of days ago. And one of the things that he mentioned was kind of this, how they tried to recreate the coming out movement, but specifically for plant medicines, and this language of coming out about being a user of psychedelics. How important do you think it is for people to share their own personal experiences, and not just, statistics and facts on the research in regards to communicating about these things?
Fantastic question. And part of what I do now is I'm working with a lot of philanthropists who have had very significant personal experiences. And when you're talking with them privately, they'll share that it's the most important transformative experience of my life that helped me through whatever I was dealing with, as many of us would share. But publicly, because they're well-known figures, they will often, give many, many millions of dollars to a very worthwhile cause in a developing country, and whatever it may be, and relatively small token amounts to MAPS or to other organizations, because they're not comfortable coming out of the closet, if you will. So I think it's incredibly important to get people willing to share that, I'm normal, or I'm leading a very normal life, or maybe I'm leading a little bit different life, but I'm totally functioning, and all that you've been hearing is not the case. What is more, or all you had been hearing is not the case. These are actually, very, very valuable substances, and here's how they've helped me in my life. So I don't know if that addresses your question, but that would be how I would approach it.
Definitely. No, definitely. And, there are some individuals who've had negative experiences with psychedelics as well, right? And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how do we allow for those individuals to step into allyship, or is there a conversation that we can be having that allows for those individuals to reopen up again to the fact that maybe in that experience they didn't have the right setting, maybe it didn't go well because of external factors, but this is still something that can be really useful for other individuals?
Right. First, I would help people differentiate. I mean, so many of those bad experiences are in a context with, like, it's the opposite of the right setting. It's like, wait, you did what? Where?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've worked Zendo at Burning Man, and it's not always the perfect setting. People are getting in, having different. Second is the whole concept of a bad trip is often just a difficult experience that actually provided learning and helping people kind of see like, all right, yeah, that was really challenging. And, were there things you learned? Oh yeah, but it was horrible. Well, if you really look at it, were you trying to suppress it? Were you having somebody in that set and setting to help you, guide you in somehow, in some context? And then just pointing out, in some situations, it was just a really bad experience. That's really unfortunate. And you are right that in some contexts, this can't work well for absolutely everybody. It works well for most people. And, I'm sorry it didn't for you. Isn't it important that we make it available for those people, for the vast majority of people, where this can be incredibly helpful? So, honoring first off, qualifying that, their negative experience may not really have been that negative, may have been in a terrible set and setting. And if it, in truth, was just that they were like not willing to open up and they were fighting that, so it really got complicated for them. Just acknowledging that and just saying, I'm really sorry that has happened, but we don't close people die in car wrecks, but we don't not have people drive cars. And, we to the extent that there are massive benefits for many, many people, how do we make this as available as possible for them?
Definitely. And pulling again on media in this space, we've had some of these documentaries that have come out, everything from, I forgot what the name is, it's escaping me, on Paul Stametson's narrating.
Fantastic Fungi.
Fantastic Fungi, exactly. And then Have a Good Trip, as well as Trip of Compassion, all of these different documentaries that kind of take their own perspective angle. What are some documentaries that you feel like you haven't necessarily seen in the space, some stories that haven't really been told that you really wish were out in the public and people were able to interact with?
So I would love more, and I actually think that Fantastic Fungi did a really good job of kind of helping to bridge between, the psychedelic world. I actually thought that did a great job of just kind of opening up that space for a lot of people. I think things related to veterans, but done in a serious way. I would love to see a good documentary, and I'm actually working with some people working on that, but I'd love to see a bunch of good documentaries done on that, treating it as a serious issue, treating the treatments the same way you would. These are people suffering. Some of them end up taking their lives, and you don't necessarily need night vision goggles to show somebody throwing up in a bucket. Yes, that's part of the experience, but that's not the part that you're working on communicating. So I would love to see serious documentaries being done, not as funny as what Netflix just put out, which concerns me because that's sort of the story that for those who understand it, yeah, it's great, it's funny, it's whatever. But in terms of bridging, it's kind of anti-bridging. It's reconfirming biases. So veterans is a perfect population. Work being done showing what MAPS is doing, what USONA is doing, what Compass is doing, what others in the space are doing, showing it as a beacon of help and hope.
Definitely.
And why.
And someone from our
so
audience.
People in white lab coats would be good.
Definitely. Someone from our audience just recommended Journeys to the Edge of Consciousness. So maybe we'll check that out and loop back. But Dick, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the time and looking forward to talking more soon.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And again, if anyone wants, Dick at dicksimon.com, and I'd love to be happy to help you in any way I can. Take care. Thank you.
Be well.